You think you've had a great sales conversation. They're excited, they think that you can help them, and you say, "Okay, I'm gonna send something over." And then all of a sudden, nobody has any idea what's going to happen next. A good sales conversation needs more than a feel good ending. It needs clear next steps. But what happens is we say something, the customer may be interested, they may even be ready to go, but interest without clear direction is going to cause a delay. And that's why we need those clear next steps. Yeah. The next reason is that verbal interest is not a commitment. A verbal commitment is not a sale, and you can't treat it like that. When we hear these verbal commitments, we start to hear like, "Hey, that sounds great," or "Send me information," or "I'd like to look it over," or "Let me talk to my team." And that makes us feel like, oh yeah, like they are ready to go. But none of them actually define what's going to happen next. Sometimes we just have to have an honest reflection of what we did and how we let it. And that actually caused them to not respond to us, not them being a ghost. You both know what's going to happen and you're excited about it. No weird, like, "Hey, I was just thinking about you at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday." You're not second guessing. You're not playing it cool while you're kind of spiraling out. You have a plan. So just simply put, did I end the conversation with a clear path?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Sippin' Matcha and helping you make more sales. We're in about the time that it takes you to enjoy your matcha or coffee break. Our resident sales coach, Brooke Greening, helps you know how to move your sales conversations forward better. Because if you have to talk to people to make sales, how well you lead those conversations is going to make or break your revenue. And Brooke, we have some excited kids in our house right now.
They are beyond excited. They are basically bouncing off the walls at this point because we are going to Branson, Missouri in 2 days.
Yes, we have 2 sleeps left, and then it's Papa and Dana, and we're excited. The kids are excited, and they know we've been talking about restaurants and activities, all sorts of things. They know the deal. Our little one told me the whole lineup of what's happening between now and then the ending line was, "Then it's go time." So it's sort of like we kind of think our customers are acting like that with us when we have these sales conversations, and that they're just so over eager to do business with us, to buy, to take the next step. And so we just kind of like assume a lot of things because that's not always the case.
I believe we think people think about us a lot more than they actually do, both in regards to when we're doing our marketing, when we're trying to figure out what to do next. We think, oh, well, especially as entrepreneurs, especially as like service based businesses, we may think, are they going to like it? Are they not going to like it? And we think they think about us way more than they actually do. And that's the exact same thing when we're having our sales conversations. We tend to get off the phone really excited and ready to go and think, okay, they're going to be ready to go. And they have literally probably just shut everything off and gone back to what they were doing.
Yeah.
They do not think about us as much as we want them to.
Yeah, and that's why the conversation that we're starting today is so important. So, just to kind of remind everybody where we've been working our way through the service sales framework that you have created. And so we've talked about things like helping the customer relax and engage, connecting with them and showing relevance to their business, understanding their problem, then verbalizing the value. We've talked about objections. And then last time we focused on sort of timing and urgency. And then today is explaining next steps. It's the final step or stage in your service framework.
Yes. And it sounds very simple. It sounds like, okay, yeah, of course. I always explain next steps. When I bring this up to my clients, they're always telling me, I am doing this. But what happens is we say something, the customer may be interested, they may even be ready to go, but interest without clear direction is going to cause a delay. And that's why we need those clear next steps.
All right. So explain next steps. What do you mean? What's the definition?
I mean that we need to ensure that the customer knows what to do next. Not generally, not eventually. They need to know, okay, what happens next? Who is responsible for these things and when will it happen? Those are the things we need to know. A next step is not clear unless both people know what happens, who does it, and when.
All right. So people, I would guess, are maybe nodding along and that they're like, it seems sort of obvious, but this is actually doesn't happen as much as you think. But then it's really, really important. So to help us today remember like why this is so critical.
It's so critical. And you're absolutely right that there are people that this happens on a regular basis. And even people who have very successful businesses fall into this trap. So this is important for you to be able to listen to and to apply because even when you have successful businesses, you can still make more sales if this one piece gets clear. So the very first reason is that uncertainty creates this hesitation. And so when customers leave a call and then they're trying to figure out, okay, what is this process? They become less confident. And so questions start to pile up. Like, is another meeting required? Am I waiting for a proposal? Is the salesperson waiting for me? When do I need to decide? Who else should be involved in this? The customer is now spending so much time trying to understand the process instead of evaluating the solution and wanting to be able to move forward.
Great. And I think what happens with this is that confusion doesn't create momentum, it creates hesitation. And hesitation is always one, it's not the only reason that shows people like confusion is not the only reason that people may hesitate, but it's a big one.
It's a big one, and it's something that we can actually control. So when we talk about, okay, there are ways that you're sabotaging your sales conversations, this is one of them. This is the one that you can actually control. And so many times we think we're being clear, but we don't have those three things lined up that we just talked about. And now it's going to get confusing.
All right. So that's the first reason. What's the next reason why this is so important?
Yeah. The next reason is that verbal interest is not a commitment. This reminds me of the saying that my dad told me all of the time. He would always say, "It's not over until the fat lady sings." And as a kid, I would just envision like this cartoon lady in this big purple dress and the Viking helmet, and she's singing. And I'd always be like, okay, well, that has to happen until things are over. But it's so true. It's not over. And even our kids know that. So when we say we've made a sale, they know we're not actually celebrating this until we've gotten the check. A verbal commitment is not a sale, and you can't treat it like that.
I was just gonna say, you may not even remember this, but like we're dating ourselves with that picture because that was like the Bugs Bunny cartoon. Yeah. Like that's the picture. Our kids have learned. You'll come down and you'll say, "Hey, I think we were gonna make a sale. I think it's gonna go forward," and they'll be like, "Yay!" But wait, because they know we don't celebrate until it's all done.
Yeah, we're not getting ice cream until we know. And
That's
so
right.
I've learned also to help them, I don't say anything until we've actually made the sale because they know. They know. They say, I said, "Hey, I made a sale." And they're like, "They've paid?" And I'm like, "They've paid." And they're like, "Yes, ice cream." Because that's what we do with our family.
So what does this sometimes sound like?
All right. So this sounds like the customer, when we hear these verbal commitments, we start to hear like, "Hey, that sounds great," or "Send me information," or "I'd like to look it over," or "Let me talk to my team." And that makes us feel like, oh, yeah, like they are ready to go. But none of them actually define what's going to happen next. And those statements may be very sincere, but that is not equaling a sale at that point. And we can't act like that because if we do, that's how things start to fall through the cracks. So that's not verbal interest is very important. We want them to be excited about us being able to work with them, but that is not a sale. That is not a guarantee of a sale. That's being hopeful at this point. And salespeople are really good at that. They can say, "Hey, I've got 5 or 6 people ready to buy." But then you're like, "Okay, what's going on with the next step? What's happening?" And they're like, "Oh, we don't have those." Then I say to my clients, then that doesn't count. That can't go in your pipeline right now.
Yeah, it's just we assume, and everybody knows the phrase of what happens when we assume, but we people probably still need guidance. They still need to make that commitment. So we've looked at 2 reasons. What's the third reason?
So the third reason is that clear steps reduce ghosting. See, people get frustrated and they're like, they said that they were interested, and then maybe they send a proposal and nothing happens. And then they feel like they've been ghosted. But ghosting is not always rejection. Sometimes that process has become vague and they don't really know what to do next. Maybe a proposal arrived without context. And specifically, a proposal without a follow up plan is just an expensive attachment. And I think if we would write that on a post it note on our computer, we would not put so much emphasis on their proposal sometimes. There has to be a plan behind it. There has to be a process with it. Otherwise, we're just sending out expensive attachments at that point.
Yeah, and so like what so we send out the proposal, we're excited, but with no
Mhm.
follow-up and that what sort of happens?
If no follow up meeting was scheduled, nobody established when a decision would be made, the reality is life just gets busy and the opportunity starts to drift away. And that's sometimes what we think is someone is ghosting us. It's no, we were not clear in what needed to happen next, nor was there urgency in what we were going to do. It's really important to remember that as soon as the conversation ends, we are usually excited. The salesperson is usually excited. It's been a good conversation. We've heard verbal interest. Like we're ready to go. But for them, if they don't have clear direction, they don't know what to do next. And so then they just keep moving on in their life. So the momentum slows down for them and the momentum speeds up for us, but we get it mixed up and we think the momentum is going for them. And that's when we get frustrated and we think, well, why didn't they buy from us? Why isn't this moving forward? Sometimes we just have to have an honest reflection of what we did and how we let it. And that actually caused them to not respond to us, not them being a ghost.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me. I chaperoned a 6th grade boys field trip. Well, it was actually the whole 6th grade, but we were staying with the boys. It was like a 3-day thing to Gettysburg this last year. And at night, we would create campfires around this campsite where we were working. And the kids would come over, and some of them would get so excited. And admittedly, like eventually the dad started cheating. We just got like the fire starters from the store or whatever. But they would just assume like, oh, we lit something on fire, and then they'd like they'd get all excited and then walk away. But they didn't understand like the big logs don't just catch on fire. You got to stick with it. You got to have
Yeah.
like you got to tend it. And so that's sort of like what the next steps do is, hey, somebody said they want it. We're done.
Yes.
No,
No,
there's more.
no,
You
no, no.
gotta,
It's just started.
yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
That's exactly it. And then you walk away and then the wind blows or whatever and you don't have a fire anymore and you come back and you're frustrated. Everybody's cold and trying to look
Yeah.
for the fire.
They were
Same thing as sales conversations. It started exciting, but
right.
we
Yeah.
didn't actually fan it.
They were very eager for s'mores and very disappointed. Like just wait a second. We got to keep working this thing. So,
Yes.
all right. I think it's maybe your last reason. You got one more here
Yeah.
for us today. What is it?
The last reason is that clarity serves both people. It's serving both of you. It's serving you as a sales professional and it's serving your potential client. And I like to look at this as like it's in regards like if you had your first date and then you wanted to plan the second date. You actually do that on the first date. Like before you guys leave, you both agree, okay, we're going to meet at this has been fantastic. Let's meet Saturday at 7 p.m. for dinner. That way, nobody is sitting around wondering, "Ooh, should I text them? Is it too soon? Have I texted too much this week?" You both know what's going to happen and you're excited about it. No weird, like, "Hey, I was just thinking about you at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday." You're not second guessing. You're not playing it cool while you're kind of spiraling out. You have a plan.
I just want to say, in response to the story, I think it was in the last episode where you shared to the world that we went on 3 dates and then got engaged, that I must
did.
have been like amazing at this because we advanced things real quick and got through it.
We did. But you did. Like, there was no question. As we were leaving, you're like, "You wanna do this again?" And I was like, "Sure." And you're like, "Okay, next Saturday, we're doing it again." There was no question of what was going to go on. I didn't know you were gonna go buy a ring the next weekend, but
Well, you know,
there
when
is
you
a
kn-
whole story behind that.
when you know, you know. But But no, like it's that same idea of like, hey, you want to do this again? Okay, sure. I don't know what that means. So, all right. So what
Yes.
what does
And
this
you aren't gonna, like, fiddle with it.
right.
Yeah.
So, well, let's before it gets embarrassing again, let's turn the corner back. How does this relate? Just tie it together here again for customers and
Yeah.
chasing and not, and what are we doing?
Absolutely. When this happens, when we're taking the moments, and it doesn't take a long time, but when we're taking these moments to be really clear about our next steps, the customer is going to understand the recommendation. Any remaining decision makers are already identified. The next meeting is scheduled. Both people are knowing what's going to happen before, and everybody knows what they need to do to be able to move forward and who's responsible for what. This is not like, oh, wouldn't that be nice? This can truly happen in your sales conversations. And that's what I want for you guys. So instead of you're getting off the next call, you're like, well, it was good. I think they're going to be able to move forward. No, no, no. Like all of these things are clearly lined up and you know what to do. It feels organized and it creates confidence for the customer and relief for you. You want them to get off the phone feeling better than when they got on the phone. And that will not happen unless they believe that you can help them and they know what that is going to look like. A lot of times they can maybe say, okay, I think you can help me. But if they aren't clear in like what this is going to start to look like and what they can do next to keep moving things forward, that's not a lot of hope. Then they're just like, okay, they're just kind of winging it at that point, and we don't want that.
Yeah. So what can people do to start thinking about how this might impact their business, their conversations?
All right. So first of all, I want you to review your last 3 calls, and I want you to know, okay, did both of us know what was going to happen next? That's the first one. Did we name who was responsible? Did we agree on a date? Or did I end up with like this vague promise to follow up? So just simply put, did I end the conversation with a clear path? That's the question you're going to ask yourself, looking at your conversations the last week.
All right, everybody, we are now officially at the last step of our service sales framework, and we've been working through in this now extended series of the service sales framework on all of these different steps. And if you're wondering how exactly you're doing on explaining next steps or any of the 6 other parts of the framework, you can figure that out by taking Brooke's sales conversation assessment. In about 5 minutes or so, you'll get some really good targeted information on where you can take steps forward, whether you're already exceeding and want to go even further, or maybe there's some areas to improve in your conversations. But you can do that at buildingmomentum.info/assessment. We encourage you to do that right now or as soon as you're done with your drive. All right, Brooke, we've set up explaining next steps. We've explained that people need to know exactly what's happening. And then we've talked about why it's so important. As is kind of our pattern in this mini series that we're doing, next time we're going to look at some of the bad examples. What
Yeah.
are you looking forward to?
Also, we're going to include that famous, like, hey, I'm going to send you something over and you can let me know. That's spoiler. That's not a plan. But we are going to note that customers should not have to guess how to buy from you. That's what we're really going to be focusing on and helping you and what to say and what and how to respond to make sure that they do know how to work with you and they don't have to guess.
All right, if you want to make sure that you don't miss that upcoming episode, we encourage you, as always, to subscribe, to like, to follow. We love hearing from you, and so if you want to leave a review, give us the 5 stars. Not to like force you into anything, but we'd love to hear from you, and that would be great. Until then, we hope you make some great sales this week.
Bye bye.